What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Monday Night Quarterback, always brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums with Trey Yanity. I'm Mick Gillispie. Our show here, as we talk Alabama football on YouTube, is brought to you by the great people at Westgate Luxury Condominiums. They're located just a mere 200 feet next to Bryant-Denny Stadium. There's nothing in between Westgate and Bryant-Denny Stadium except the road. And when you're on the sky deck, on the roof, the Skygate Club, yeah, guess what? You get to see right into the stadium, or at least to the concessions and all the things going on there. When you're at Westgate, and you can find out more information at westgateal.com, you're right near the Strip. You're right near the Walk of Champions. You're right near campus. You're near everything, right? Even the quad. So check it out, westgateal.com. Units available right now, 1 to 5 bedroom units that range from 900 to 3,000 square feet. You're talking about oversized balconies that see downtown, maybe campus, maybe the football stadium. They're great. You got the Wolf and Sub-Zero kitchens. You got just luxury at its best, great parking, and an awesome place to go is Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Again, westgateal.com. All right, it's Monday Night Quarterback. Like and subscribe as you hang out with us here today. Give us a thumbs up. We got a lot to talk about with the 8A game coming up this Saturday. Alabama getting closer and closer. Trey, I know we're supposed to be talking about, Bryce Young and Will Anderson Jr. and maybe Gibbs and maybe Ricks or maybe some of the new receivers, but all the talk has been Agiye Hall. And before we even get into it, let me ask you how you're doing, and then I want to play you a clip of Nick Saban talking about Agiye Hall.
Yeah, I'm doing great, Mick. It is great to be back for Monday Night Quarterback. I know you guys are excited to be here, so get in the comments, guys. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us your thoughts on Agiye Hall, of course, and everything else going on. But one thing I love about Westgate, Mick, we always start the show with Westgate. It is the center of attention in Tuscaloosa. I mean, it is the center of everything. But unfortunately, this week, that was Agiye Hall. He decided to be the center of attention yet again, and it has costed him his spot on the team. So excited to talk about it. But let's get to this clip first. Hear what Nick Saban had to say about it.
On Ajiye, just what opportunity does he have to earn his way back to the team, and what would you look for?
Well, he already had that opportunity once, so I don't know what his plans are for the future.
Wow. Icy, Trey. Icy. That's Nick Saban kind of normally saves that kind of directness to the media. He doesn't hardly ever talk about players like that. He's fed up with Agiye Hall. And it's more than just, Agiye Hall not following the rules. You can tell he doesn't want him on the team.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think anybody would disagree with him. This has been, one big saga, one thing after another for Agiye Hall. It started last year, and I think, the 8A game, while it wasn't any negative headlines, was kind of the start of this cycle. I mean, we saw Agiye Hall have the game of his life to start the spring, or, to kind of get a taste in everybody's mouth for what he could do at that 8A game. Was the best player in that game. I think from there, maybe it was an ego problem. Maybe not. I don't know. I can't speak on that. I haven't talked to Agiye about it. But, this is when Agiye started to get the attention. And then we get to the fall. He doesn't get a spot. JoJo Earl plays. Ja'Cory Brooks plays. Some of these guys get in before he does. And, maybe I disagree with that at the time. But Nick Saban ultimately makes that decision. Made the right decision. Alabama went to the national title game. They won the SEC championship. It didn't include Agiye Hall for a lot of that. Agiye Hall didn't like that very much. Obviously goes to Twitter. Starts tweeting some kind of, I don't want to call it subtweets. It was more just ambiguous, tweets about life almost, talking about maybe a future exit or some kind of transfer portal in his future. But, things looked good after the national title, at least team-wise with Agiye Hall. I think they were in a good spot. They're ready to take a step forward. Obviously, he got his chance in that game, after the injury to Jameson Williams. So he had his chance. Didn't work out too well in that game. I think they had some good conversations and they were in a good spot coming to the spring. But then things took a turn for the worse. Don't know exactly what happened at practice or, what this instance was for the leadership team of players to come together and say, we got to kick this guy off the team. We got to suspend this guy. But ultimately they made that decision. Nick Saban, pretty cold and hard about it, like you said, but he officially enters his name to the transfer portal this past Thursday. And I'm with Ernesto down here in the comments. I think it's time to turn the page because this has been such a headache for this program, a program, that's known for their discipline and known for just an organizational standard that, not a lot of professional programs have. I mean, the PR at Alabama and, the type of player you get isn't typically a guy like Agiye Hall. And I think Agiye Hall has great things in his future. Like I said, he's maybe my wide receiver number 3, 4 last season, maybe the first freshman I play out of that group. But, he didn't get the chance, didn't handle it well. He's going to have to move on and find another school. You hope that it works out for him. This kid is Brandon Marshall 2.0. The size and the vertical and the hands, everything else. You'll love what he brings as a player, but off the field, didn't love it, and you just can't do that at Alabama.
Look, Agiye Hall, he was tweeting last year after an Alabama win. He was complaining about his contribution on the field. We've seen that there are receivers in the sport of football who want the ball a lot and make a fuss about wanting the ball. And obviously he's one of those guys. But when the national championship rolled around and there were injuries and Alabama needed him, he was inconsistent. He couldn't catch the ball. He tried to catch one pass like this, like with his hands crossed, like arms crossed. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. You know what? He's not that much of an impact player. He's just a guy, and he was just out there, causing a lot of commotion with some of the tweets that he would put out. And here's the thing, Trey, and I'm gonna kind of educate everyone on here about life before Nick Saban. Alabama used to have guys like Agiye Hall on the football team, because they didn't have a choice. If you're a 5-star talent, who cares about your character, right? Who cares about the trouble that you cause off the field, whether you show up to class? Mike Shula and some of those coaches, they were stuck taking guys like this. Where it was like, hey, you know what? We got to take a risk on a guy who has 5-star talent and, maybe 1 or 2-star character. Nick Saban doesn't have to do that. And if you can't figure it out with Nick Saban, who's the greatest coach of all times, then he's going to eventually say, hey, you know what? Go on and go somewhere else. I mean, would I be surprised if Agiye Hall went somewhere else and had a decent college career? No. But would I also be surprised if Agiye Hall went somewhere else and caused havoc in a football program? No. Would I be surprised if he went to a school and caused trouble in the locker room or didn't show up to classes or something else? No. I mean, we've been kind of sitting here every week, it's like, what's going to happen with Agiye Hall? And I think all of us knew that eventually this was going to be the outcome. Either he was going to get it right or he was going to join Jaleel Billingsley somewhere else. And the best thing about what Nick Saban's able to do is that he doesn't have to tolerate this type of behavior. Whether you don't want to show up to class or whether you're breaking team rules, at the end of the day, if you want to be part of the best program in college football, you got to follow the rules and you got to step in line. And Agiye Hall has been in trouble since he had one good A-Day game. He had one good A-Day game, and I guess because of that, Trey, we're assuming that he's the next Mechie or he's the next, four horsemen that Alabama had a few years ago with Waddle and Smitty and Ruggs and all those guys and Judy, right? Or maybe he's going to be Amari Cooper. Maybe he's going to be, someone else, Ridley. No, you know what he is? He's a guy that's going somewhere else, and we'll see where he ends up, and we'll see what he does. But for Nick Saban to be that direct about a player, and we've seen players get DUI car accidents. We've seen players beat up students on campus. We've seen players do a lot worse than break team rules. And Nick Saban's always just kind of like, hey, you know what? Let's just, he's always calm and he's always kind of, taking up for those guys and giving them the benefit of the doubt and, talking about second chances. Agiye Hall has burnt out all those second chances.
He has, and some. And I think, when we talk about some of those guys, we look back even to Mac Jones, for example. He had a DUI early on his freshman year. I don't think, that was a problem because he knew the character of Mac Jones. And Nick Saban, nobody can decipher character better than Nick Saban. So, I think this one, whether the problems were this or that, Agiye didn't respond well. Agiye didn't show the character to be able to, stick it out and endure. And, I think in a lot of these cases, guys make honest mistakes and, things happen. It's college. And, you kind of take that into mind with this case. Agiye Hall is 18 years old. I mean, he's a kid, I bet a lot of people watching tonight, myself included, all of us included, are older than him. And, we're speaking on decisions that he's making under a lot more pressure than we've ever been. So there's something to be said about that. But at the end of the day, when you understand you have that platform and you understand you have those responsibilities, you have to carry yourself a little bit differently. And Agiye Hall didn't do that. Alabama has set the standard for, I think, how to carry yourself. Agiye Hall couldn't figure it out. I think, where he really doomed himself wasn't with the mistakes he made, maybe not even the drama and some of the stuff we saw, the parking lot video, all that. I don't even know if that was the crux of it. I think it was going on Twitter and, saying these things and not responding well and just not showing Nick Saban that he was going to give it the effort he needed to become a better player, and not just that, but a better person too, because that's ultimately, I think, what cost him a spot here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and I feel like with the transfer portal, college coaches are going to have to deal a lot more with these type of situations, because the players are a lot more emboldened now than they were when, Nick Saban first took over. And even a few years ago, before you could just transfer at will somewhere else. And I'm guessing that there's a lot of programs that are going to have to make similar moves on guys. And maybe, because of the fact that the players feel like they can just get up and leave, and they can anytime they want, that there's going to be a lot more of this. I think Alabama's lucky that they have Nick Saban, though, where bringing in the next guy isn't going to be too tough. But at the same time, you know what? There's going to be a lot of programs that are going to feel like they have to tolerate this, because if they don't, they're held captive by the transfer portal.
Oh, for sure. And just one more quick note on this, because, this is something that I hate to dwell on, these negative notes as we get into such a fun time of the spring. But, somebody just made a good comment. You don't see a lot of guys move on and have success. I don't know what's going to happen for Agiye Hall. I think his abilities and, his size, if nothing else, just his, his NFL projections put him in a really good spot. But I was really high on a guy named Tyrell Shavers a few years ago, and, things didn't really work out well. Kid was unbelievably talented, but could never figure out how to act as a player. And, that cost him. I hope we don't see the same for Agiye Hall, because, I think there's a lot of good in Agiye Hall. It's just the same, no matter what kind of drama or, what has happened at Alabama. But, this is going to have to be, I think, a full life switch up 180 for Agiye Hall, because, he hasn't been able to show that kind of character as an athlete yet.
All right, we turned the page on Agiye Hall. Great to see all of you guys in the comment section. I see Chris Allen coming at me on my shirt. Look, it's spring camp right now. This is summer wear as we move forward towards the spring game on Saturday. Guys, like and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and we appreciate you guys being here talking Alabama athletics today, mostly football. All right, let's get into what's going on now with the Crimson Tide football team with the 8A game coming up this Saturday. You got everything kind of leading up to that game, and besides the Agiye Hall thing, it seems like everything else has been really popular for the Crimson Tide. I mean, really popular and really positive.
Yeah, it's been great. We still are waiting on some big news. We hope that Tyler Steen, chooses Alabama. He's due to make that announcement here really soon. We saw on Saturday that, he's announced he will not be returning to Vanderbilt. Alabama's looking like the leader at this point. So you hope that he can add to this group and, add another exciting name to close it out here in the spring, or, really join in on the summer there once they get into that. But, from what we've heard, it's just been positive note after positive note. And a lot of it's been about the newcomers, whether that's, freshmen coming into the program or the transfers. And we knew these transfers were going to have a lot of success. We knew Jahmyr Gibbs was going to come in and, be able to carry over what he did. I mean, he's just got that natural skill set. And I don't remember exactly which player it was that commented on him this week. I think it was Henry To'oTo'o, but, he just kind of talked about how Jahmyr Gibbs is such a smart running back. He finds holes so well. And, once he has those holes, his stop and start ability is unlike, any running back we've seen here in a little bit. Maybe he doesn't have the vertical of a Ajiye Harris, the cutting abilities, but Jahmyr Gibbs has a very special skill set. Just really been fun to watch him kind of get to know this team a little bit and, get into the program along with these other running backs too. That's going to be my favorite group this year, I think. But, as we've gone through the spring, offensive line, wide receiver, these have been two hot topics as well. These are, positions where there's not a clear-cut candidate to be maybe number 2, 3, 4. So who's going to fill in there? 8A is going to be, a fun day to kind of see where they are at this point. But like I said last year, like I said on many of these shows, can't read too much into this game. We saw Agiye Hall go crazy last year in that game. Didn't see the field in fall until the national title, of course. But, this is just a day where I think you kind of see where you're at. It's a progress report almost. And, you look back to last year's 8A game, Henry To'oTo'o was not part of the program at that point. Jamison Williams, not part of the program at this point. So the team could look a lot different after this game, but You love what you've heard so far, love what we've seen on the tape, and you just hope they carry that into A-Day, and we hope you see a lot of you guys there, because as you know, free admission, I believe 2:30 is the kickoff over there. So I hope it's a packed stadium. We're gonna have a fun time up at Westgate, I know.
Yeah, we'll be talking Alabama football as always, and probably jump on before the game's over. I mean, normally by the fourth quarter, it is pretty much just walk-ons and stuff like that. Look, Gregory Rose, man, how about a super chat? Haven't had one of those in a long time, man. Shout out to you and everyone for hanging out with us as we talk Alabama football. All right, let's get into some transfers. I know you brought this up. Chris was excited about this. Been a lot of talk about Alabama's offensive line, what that's going to look like. Now, 3 guys that we think will probably be starters not participating in this spring camp. So, it's hard to really tell exactly how this is going to play out. But Georgia just had 2 guys transfer that when they were recruited were amongst the best in the country at their positions on the offensive line.
Oh, no doubt. And, Alabama fans, you might remember Amarius Mims. This was a guy that was recruited, at least early on, pretty heavily. And, now we just kind of get to wait and see where these guys end up choosing. Don't know if it's going to be Alabama with either of these guys. Don't want to make an assumption quite yet. But if nothing else, guys, hey, they're not going to be a Georgia Bulldog anymore. So that's got to be some good news. You look at how Georgia won this past season. It wasn't necessarily Stetson Bennett. When Stetson Bennett seceded, it was because of this offensive line, what they were able to do. Obviously, on the other side of the football, Georgia had, a decade worth defense. They had a premier defense in the SEC. That's probably ultimately what won them that title. But, offensively, they had a lot of success. Look at the running back room. Look at what Zamir White did. Look what Cook did, some of these guys. That doesn't happen without Amarius Mims. Clay Webb, the other offensive lineman to enter the transfer portal today as well. Would love to give you guys more information, but like I said, don't want to make an assumption because the transfer portal this time of the year especially is always so weird. But like I said, Georgia losing 2 guys, huge for the SEC if nothing else.
Yeah. Do you think Alabama's going to be in the mix for these guys? I mean, they want Steen. We don't know where Steen's going to turn out, but we know that they want these guys on the offensive line.
No doubt. Anything you can do right now for Alabama to add experience to the offensive line is crucial. You lose Evan Neal, who's going to fill in that role. And, you talk about a guy like Tyler Steen. Love what he could bring because he's versatile. He can play left tackle. He can play right tackle. You can kind of move him around. Amarius Mims, I haven't heard kind of his point of view of where he would like to play once he transfers, but he's got some versatility as well. So athletic. Both of these guys 5 stars in their recruitment in high school. They chose Georgia for a reason. They wanted to have a lot of success. I don't know the reasons for these transfers specifically, but Alabama already got Jermaine Burton from Georgia. If you can add one of these 2 guys, maybe Amarius Mims is maybe my favorite out of these 2. Both incredibly talented offensive linemen, but Mims may be more likely than Clay Webb. He showed that interest in Alabama before. And he would be a guy that would just change this offensive line, in my opinion. If you can add Steen, one of these 2 guys, we're talking about a completely different offensive line than we were even, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how it plays out. And, Alabama's got some talented guys. Have you heard of any of the guys who are fighting right now for positioning on the offensive line having really good or really bad camps?
We heard about Jaheim Otis early on and some of these youngsters as well. I see this kind of for Alabama this year, at least. I could see the offensive line as being one of those positions where they have a little bit of a rotation. We saw it a little bit last year. Chris Owens was one of those guys that I don't think a lot of Alabama fans trusted in. And, he's a guy that kind of had to move around a little bit. You look at the depth chart, and there's some guys that I think have had really good springs we haven't heard as much about. But I think you just kind of stick with what you got, with what you know at least. You got Seth McLaughlin, Javion Cohen, these guys. Kind of your anchors there. You get Tyler Steen, like I said, you throw him at tackle. I would love to see Tommy Brockermeyer, get his shot this season. Terrence Ferguson, another youngster, along with, the other Brockermeyer, redshirt freshman now as well. Just a lot of youth in this group. You got Darian Dalcourt, love his skill set. He's going to get his chance as well. But I think, we just see a rotation. Emil Ekiyor. There's so many guys that, maybe aren't top NFL talent necessarily, but guys that have experience, guys that can fill into this role. You hope J.C. Latham comes in and lives up to the hype. This is a guy that, was probably my favorite prospect out of that class,
Right.
Last season. So you hope he can come in and do his thing. But overall, this is just a group that kind of has a mix of the experience, mix of the youth. And I think one that we see rotate, because of that. Let's say they do get Webb. Let's say they do go out and get Amarius Mims. Maybe not. Maybe you see a little bit more of a set offensive line. But overall, there's a few different guys you can go to. This is by no means a Mayday group for Alabama. This is a group that lost Evan Neal, has some weakness when you talk about the team overall, but it's not Mayday. There's a lot of different options. Depth is not a problem here. And, ultimately, I think they're going to use a lot of it.
Guys, as you hang out with us talking Alabama football on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, subscribe. Make sure that you share. Tell your friends about it. This is where we do it. We talk Alabama football every day, all day here on this channel. And look, Scott Henderson, I'm sure you're related to Kyle Henderson, throwing us a super sticker for $10. And thank you so much, guys, all of you, for hanging out with us tonight. Scott, whether you're related to Kyle or not, we appreciate it. Don't forget, tomorrow, every Tuesday, Andrew Bone, who is the best in the recruiting business, will give you an update on Alabama recruiting, whether that's players from high school or transfer portal stuff. And then Kyle Henderson, Trey Yanity, Chris Daughtry, constantly updating anything going on. And then the whole gang will be back on Saturday to take you through the 8A game. Who's going to be this year's 8A star? John Mechie is a great example of a guy who stepped up in the 8A game, who put his time in, eventually got the start at wide receiver. He was dominant in 2 SEC championship games. I think if you remember anything about John Mechie, it's that he played his biggest games in the biggest games. And you know what? He had to sit behind 4 guys that were drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft before he got his opportunity, right? That's what the 8A game is to me. And also to get an idea of what you have down the line, too.
For sure. And before I get into it here, Mr. Wop, great catch. I believe I said Jaheim Otis. I'm talking about JC Latham there. So thank you for keeping me in check. That's WOP, guys, by the way. But no, this 8A game is going to be a lot of fun because, we get to see them use so many of these different youngsters, and they're really going to unload the bag as they will. And like you said, we're going to get on our show, maybe mid-third quarter into the fourth quarter. So maybe we can highlight some of these guys as they get into the game, make their debut in front of fans. So it's just it's a fun day. It's a celebration. Some cool ceremonies going on before the game, I believe this year as well. I don't think anybody, has to prove anything as far as that receiver room goes. There's a lot of guys that are in the same boat. If somebody wants to emerge here, great. But I think, like I said, we see that in the fall, once we really get into fall practice, because that's where I think the depth chart is truly made or broken. It's not 8A. 8A is fun, but this is just, like I said, the biggest progress report for Alabama football, if nothing else. See where you're at right now, and hopefully they add some guys over the summer, maybe another offensive lineman, somebody else. If not, you have a dynamic team already.
All right, let's talk a little basketball. Then I want to talk baseball. Juwan Gary transferred. What does Alabama basketball look like to you right now? We had some guys declare for the NBA. We're still waiting on JD Davidson, from what I understand, right? We haven't heard one way or the other, although I feel like Nate Oates thinks he's going to leave. And there's probably a lot of work on that roster to be done before the time Alabama tips off again.
There is. And you like this class. Let me get this up here so I don't leave anybody out. But, for Alabama basketball, it's about getting Charles Bediako in the right headspace. Ultimately, I think he's going to be the make or break player for that team in 2022, 2023 season. You like the guard play you get to an extent, but you are losing some big names at guard. And if JD Davidson comes back, you're happy, but ultimately, I don't think he will. This is a kid that has all the NBA measurables in the world. We saw him turn the ball over countless times this season. But I think in the NBA, with that kind of vertical, with that kind of length and the way he can stretch the ball, some of the passing we saw this season too, that's just NBA stuff. He's going to have to clean a lot of his game up, no doubt about it. The turnovers, some of the lulls, and at times he wasn't as aggressive as he could have been. I think coming from private or smaller school basketball created some of that maybe, but this is a kid that I don't see coming back next season. You look at what it looks like next year. Alabama doesn't have a crazy class as far as quantity, but you love the quality. You got Brandon Miller, Jaden Bradley, coming in from IMG as well. This kid, Rylan Griffin, was kind of a sneaky recruit for Nate Oates to get. Noah Clowney, kid out of my hometown, actually, in Roebuck, South Carolina, and Nick Pringle as well. Complete this class coming in. You get 2 5-stars in the class. You get a 4-star, 2 4-stars, and a 3-star in Pringle as well. This is going to have to be a youth movement for Alabama basketball this season. You lose Juwan Gary, which you would have loved to have kind of anchored down, a little bit more depth down low. In my opinion, I think you stretch Juwan Gary. I don't think they did that enough this past season. Play him more as a forward rather than a center, but it hurts to lose him either way. And, with a guy like Charles Bediako, how much bigger can he get? How much more aggressive can he get? Because when Alabama struggled this season, they couldn't out-rebound teams. They couldn't defend the baseline even. And I think defense as a whole has to improve mightily for this team to have success, especially in the tournament. You have to guard the perimeter. You can't have teams shooting in the mid-40s every game against you. But, ultimately, Alabama, I don't think is going to take a step back by any means. You don't have Javon Quinterly returning, some of these guys. But
Shackelford's gone.
Shackelford is gone as well. You lose a lot here, but you still have a lot of talent coming into the program with these recruits, and you got at least some experience in your backcourt to an extent. You got James Rojas and some of these other guys, and a big transfer out of Ohio the other day as well. Let me make sure to get these details right here.
And he was a sought-after guy too.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, this is Alabama, I think as far as Nate Oates' biggest successes have come in the transfer portal in some of these guys. You look back, the kid from Butler a few years ago, and you get Noah Gurley, out of Furman this past year as well. So the way that they can work the transfer portal.
Yeah, Quinterly was from Villanova, right?
Quinterly from Villanova. That was his first big transfer to get. Mark Sears out of Ohio, the kid I was thinking of here.
That's right.
Just huge to continue to work the transfer portal. And the thing I kind of like about Alabama, they're branding this in a little bit of a different way. You look at schools like Duke, Kentucky, they're making that promise, hey, you're going to come here, play for a year, you're going to go to the NBA. At Alabama, you maybe get a kind of kid, and you'd love to get a one and done when you can, get that kind of talent at your school, but you at least will have, kids that stick around for a few years. These kids are 4-stars, maybe not 5-stars always. You can kind of build up that depth and, just have that experience for the tournament, for some of these preseason tournaments, everything else. Overall, this team, I think is, like I said, not going to take a step back, but it will have a different look, and you got to hope that these recruits come in and live up to the hype.
Yeah, and look, I agree with the comment section. J.D. Davidson should come back to Alabama and do the things that we know he's able to do, cut down on the turnovers, get a little bit more accurate with the shot. And instead of being someone that's drafted as, hey, you got a lot of talent athletically, be someone that's, we got to have this guy to build our franchise around, and I know that he's going to, I just know by listening to Nate Oates that they think he's going into the NBA, and I think he's leaving a lot of money on the table because he's got if he works hard, puts the work in, the talent to be one of the best players in the country, one of the best guards in the country. And you know what? He may develop in the G League or whatever it is. But I can't imagine an NBA team having them on their regular roster the way that his game is right now. With that said, I would love to see him come back, bring the big hair, the ability to get to the basket, move the ball down the court back. That styling is one of my favorite players. Just a lot of things to sand off the edges, but still, I don't think that's going to happen. But I agree with you guys. I would love to see that as part of Alabama's team next year. All right, final topic. And guys, as you hang out with us, make sure that you like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up. We appreciate you being here on the Bama football YouTube channel. We talk football in here all the time. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Like, subscribe, share, be a part of it. All right, we're going to talk baseball. And we got to. Look, Bama baseball is making us talk Bama baseball. 2 weeks ago, they go to Texas A&M. They win 2 out of 3, right? Then they sweep Ole Miss. And it wasn't that long ago that Ole Miss was number 1 in the country. So a slow start for this team, but now all of a sudden they're starting to become one of the surprises in the SEC.
And they're ranked. I mean, we're 24th. You look at the poll today, Alabama sneaks into it for the first time this season. You love the makeup of this team. There's so many veterans with this group. You don't love the bullpen. If you guys follow Alabama baseball, you really, really do not like the bullpen. It's been terrible this season. If Alabama had won every game where they were up by 4 or more runs, I think they're something like, 10-1 in SEC play this year.
Wow.
Or 11-1, excuse me. So, I mean, just an egregious bullpen to this point for Alabama. That aside, this team has been dominant. And I think at this point, you go 500 in the SEC, a little above 500. You almost lock yourself into a regional. Ole Miss this weekend, number 9 in the country. They slide behind Alabama now to number 25, but that's a very talented team. You go to Mississippi and get those 3 wins. Love to see it. Would have loved to gotten a win at Texas, add that to the resume. Couldn't pull it off there. Would have loved to have beat Florida in that first game when they had them on the ropes. I believe in game 2 there as well. So many games left on the table for this team, and I think it's being cleaned up. This is the time of the year it has to be cleaned up. I hope we're not talking about this like basketball where we saw them get hot, as they got into the SEC or later on really for basketball. And then, it all blew up at the NCAAs. But, this baseball team is talented. You have a premier hitter in the country, Owen Diodati, excuse me. And, you have great pieces around him. Guys like Drew Williamson, guys like Jim Jarvis, just some gritty guys on this team. You would love to have Connor Prelip right now. I don't know if you heard about that story. Projected to go number 1 overall in this upcoming draft. In some projections, not every one of them, but had to get surgery, was not able to play this season. I think you have him, some of these other guys that are out right now. This team's even a step ahead, but they bounced back, and this team's hot. Sorry, we're talking about baseball, guys. I know even basketball turns off some of the hardest Alabama fans, but you know what? This is a good baseball team, and they're hot right now, so we got to talk about them.
Look, they have a collision course with Tennessee. And, here's Chris Allen, Bama baseball, big series against the Vols. The Volunteers are the best team in the country. They're number 1 right now. They've won 23 straight. They've started off hotter than any team in SEC history. They're like 11 or 12-0 in the SEC, right? No one's ever done that before. And then they've won 23 straight. So if they win on Tuesday, their midweek game, 24 straight ties Arkansas with the longest winning streak in SEC history, which means that Alabama, and I don't think Tennessee Tech's going to beat them on Tuesday, right? Which means that Alabama on Friday is the game to win 25 straight. And I'll tell you what, man, I just think at some point in this series, Bama's going to find a way to beat these guys. Both teams are playing really good baseball. The SEC might not be as good as we thought they were. Vandy isn't as good as we thought they were. Ole Miss was number 1, and now they've been swept twice already. The Tennessee was ranked way down low, and they're an amazing baseball program. So I can't wait to see what happens when those two teams play on Friday. And I wonder if it's going to be for the longest winning streak in conference history.
Alabama and Tennessee have a lot of fun when they start talking about streaks. This is baseball, though, not football. So, maybe Alabama can end a streak.
Rubbing it in, aren't you, Trey?
Yeah, here we go. But, to my Vols fans out there, this is an unbelievable Tennessee team. Last year, they went to Omaha. Thought, they had a really good chance to win it. Ultimately, they didn't. They're back for vengeance. They showed Iona that in their first series, scoring 33 runs in the first 2 games. So, this team is just or even more than that, excuse me. I think it was 33 runs in 1 game. We got Chris, the producer. I don't know if you have the exact number. It was something like 50 runs in those first 2 games.
It was crazy.
This team can hit. They do have the bullpen that Alabama doesn't have. Very complete team, a very experienced team. It's going to be a handful for Alabama this weekend. 68 runs in 2 games there in that opening series against Iona. It's the Gales of Iona. It's not Alabama, but, it's going to be a challenge for this team. Any way you draw it, you got to hope you can get out to a hot start because it's going to be hard to come back on a team like this. You got to hope you have the chance to end a streak, because that would be a lot of fun. Especially, I think this series is in Tuscaloosa, correct?
I think it's in Knoxville.
Oh, man. All the odds stacked. That makes it even more fun. Go up there in the streak for the Vols. But, you just got to hope that you can get the pitching this weekend because, like I said, I'm going to beat it like a dead horse. This Alabama bullpen could not be much worse.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's coming up. And then final thing, Trey, give us an update on softball. We know that they have the best pitcher in the country. They got a team that can score a bunch of runs. This feels like a team that's going to really be contending for a championship this year. They came up short a year ago, maybe with the best team in the country. What's going on with the gang at Rhodes Stadium, at the Brick House?
The Brick House has been packed, and for good reason. I mean, this team just continues to roll. They had a series with Georgia recently, and they lost the first game in that series. A little bit of surprise for them. Came back 2 games later, and they threw a perfect game. I believe it was Lexi Kilfoyle in that game. So this team just finds a way. They won a really gritty game in their last effort. I believe yesterday against Florida. I think they might be playing tonight even. So, this team just has so many different weapons to beat you. They have, some younger players on this team. I'm blanking on the shortstop from Pennsylvania. If somebody knows it, get it in the comments for me because she is unbelievably talented. I want to give her due credit. But this team doesn't have many games left. The SEC tournament, I believe, in Gainesville this year, it's going to be a challenge to go down to Florida and, come out of there with the victory. But, we've seen in the past in Alabama, we'll look to continue this regional streak. I don't know what the number is, but I don't think they've ever lost a regional game with Patrick Murphy at the helm. So, this team has the postseason experience. They've got the players, no doubt about it. They got the wins now, too, and have proven themselves this season. So the sky's the limit here. Let me get this record for you officially at this point. 33-5. That's a 868 win percentage. So they're doing all right. Yeah,
not too shabby. All right, Trey, anything I missed before we close up shop tonight?
I think we're all good. Just a lot of stuff, guys, going on our YouTube page. So be sure to go check it out. Of course, this is Agiye Hall news. Anything else you find out, maybe about a new school, we'll get it up for you. And be sure, just to keep updated on spring practice. We got one more week leading up to A-Day now. And be sure, guys, to tune in on Saturday because we're going to have a lot of fun. Full day coverage for you guys. So be sure to join us. Thanks for being here tonight.
All right, Trey, thanks, man. Well said. No more Agiye Hall questions at Alabama. Good luck to him as he moves forward. And for Alabama, I guess that just shows you where the program is right now, where they're not going to tolerate a lot of the stuff that is, not following team rules. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Andrew Bone will be on to talk recruiting. Maybe he'll give you an update on Steen. Anything else going on? Alabama constantly out there beating the bushes for the next number 1 recruiting class. We'll have all the coverage of practice leading into A-Day, and then on Saturday, we'll be hanging out at Westgate Luxury Condominiums as we break down the A-Day game. It's going to be exciting. Can't wait to see maybe a little Jalen Milroe at quarterback. Who knows? Maybe some other guys. Ty Simpson. Maybe we'll get to see what he's all about. A little battle for the number 2 spot. Hey, that's what A-Day football is all about. Special thanks to Chris Daughtry behind the scenes, getting it done for us. And for Trey Yanity, I'm Mick Gillispie. Don't forget, guys, like, subscribe, share. Make sure that you are part of what we do here, Talking Alabama Football on YouTube. Our show is always brought to you by Westgate Luxury Condominiums. Find out how awesome they are for yourself at WestgateAL.com. That does it for Monday Night Quarterback. We'll do it again real soon. I'm Mick Gillispie. Roll Tide, everybody.